All right, welcome to this video on how to use AI as an attorney and specifically to do so ethically. So like many areas of the law, there is no clear-cut way on how to do this currently, and it's sort of a balancing test as I see it. Now, what we're trying to balance is innovation with integrity. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it, starting with the rule. So as you're all aware, we owe certain duties and obligations to our clients, one of those being privacy, confidentiality, and a certain level of competence. So that's why I'm going to start with this rule, but you can go read it for yourself, even though, we're all already aware of these things. Now, the extra reason why we should be thinking about this is we recently had ABA opinion 512. Now, ABA opinion 512 talks about a few different things. One of them essentially states the level of competence lawyers should have in the sense of understanding capabilities and limitations of generative AI tools that they are using for their clients. In addition to that, you need to understand confidentiality and how you're maintaining it while you're using AI. And then additionally, you need to be transparent with clients that you are using AI because of the risk that it poses. Okay, so you need to be obtaining informed client consent before inputting confidential information into the self-learning generative AI tools. Okay, so get written consent so that you have it on the record book in case you ever, have to go to court. Communication. Yes, so communication is another thing discussed by this opinion. Disclosure of the generative artificial intelligence use to clients when it's going to significantly impact representation or fees. So this kind of goes with the transparency, but your fees and how you bill clients should also reflect your use of AI in the sense that if you prepared a document, typically takes you 2 hours and you've saved, an hour and a half on it because your use of AI, your billing should reflect that. All right. Accuracy is another thing mentioned by this opinion. And in that, you need to essentially verify all data or information you are given by the AI. So you ask it questions, you give it information, and its response is something you always have to verify is correct. Now, that's pretty obvious, but as we've all heard in the news, not every attorney thought that was obvious. Okay. The next thing is if your firm is going to be implementing this, there should be some level of supervision or policies, training that goes into it for the firm and for younger associates or older associates. I think is going to be more likely the case. Unfortunately, going forward, it's not going to be the younger associates to worry about so much as the older ones. Just like it's typically our parents who are getting tricked into phone scams and not the kids. All right. All right, from there, let's go ahead and go to why we are even worried in the first place. Because this is something that's, kind of the elephant in the room, at least for me, it was. Everyone was saying we need to, make sure there's no breaches, we need to be careful. And yeah, that sounds great, but why, what are we worried about exactly? What are we specifically worried about with using AI? I've used it quite a bit and I've never gotten somebody else's data coming through my responses. So how's that going to happen? Well, the fear is essentially that, oh gosh, where did my policy go? Here it is. So this comes from OpenAI. These are the makers of ChatGPT, and they talk about how your data is used to improve model performance. Okay, so when you put something in, you get a response you like, regardless, everything that goes in is used to improving this large language model. So we need to be mindful of that when we're putting in sensitive information, that this is used and now sort of retained in the memory of the large language model. Here's another thing. This comes from the settings of ChatGPT, and there's actually a way you can opt out of this, but it's strange because they offered a paid privacy service, and I find it hard to believe you'd be bypassing that by just opting out. But here, the second point, no model training. Temporary chats won't be used to improve our models. Now, this raises questions like what's temporary chat versus permanent, all these other things. And I just don't really trust this that much. But, in your settings, you can opt out of this. But I have a hard time believing you've opted out of all training or all sort of retaining of your information you've put in. So one of the approaches you could take if you're really worried about this is you can anonymize data before you put it into ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot. You can put this stuff in prior. And so you don't have to worry about a breach or leak coming on, the other end or somebody, at the company or whatever, just the company having that data. You don't have to worry about this as much because it won't mean anything to them because they aren't aware of the client that it is connected to if it is sufficiently anonymized and de-identified. So you could use Microsoft Presidio, which is a data anonymizer, to make it completely unclear as to who this data connects to. Um, Another thing that you can do is run a local large language model. So this is Hugging Face Company. So here you can download, because this is a lot of this AI work is open source, you could actually download the code to run queries and complete tasks on your own computer. Now, this is different from ChatGPT or Claude in the sense that those are cloud-based LLMs in the sense that when you put in a question, it will send it to them. They will do the work over there and answer it very quickly and then send it back to you. That's because they have the good hardware over there and your computer does not. And so that brings us into the disadvantage of this. So because you'd be running it locally on your computer, you might be at a disadvantage in terms of speed or computing power. And so that's something to think about. But here, if you were to be running queries on a local large language model that you downloaded and modified yourself, you wouldn't have the same concerns of a breach coming, outside of your control. This would be sort of like having a filing cabinet. All right. Another thing to think about is just purchasing one of these more premium versions or premium services offered by OpenAI or Microsoft. And so I've heard of firms doing that with the Microsoft one. I haven't talked to many firms yet about using OpenAI's paid services, but it seems like a good one because when it comes to ownership of your data, they're not going to train on your data, the things you put in, and you're going to own your inputs and your outputs, and you're going to be able to control how long your data is retained. So I think this is a great option, but it's just going to depend on what is within your firm's budget. Now, another one of these is Wickard. They're a young, up and coming company, and they kind of are really great. If you're a small or mid-sized firm, you should really think about looking into Wickard because they try to tailor their services to you. All right. And I'll probably do a whole video on Wickard, but for now, we'll just keep moving on. So the rules currently within the courts and how they are responding to it are interesting and all over the place, but we can expect uniformity coming within the next couple of years. So there's a good timeline somewhere here. Yeah. So this shows how courts started, issuing guidelines. Federal courts were clearly ahead of the rules, ahead of the curve when it came to addressing this. Now, a better visualization of this is here. This is a chart from that website, and I think I'll attach this in the description of the video if you want to look at it yourself. But here we can see how many different courts, federal and state, are issuing rules on this. And you can see, here some are entirely prohibiting it, some require disclosure of AI, some then require after disclosure that you used it to the other side, as well as the judge, that you then verified it. Now, verifying should go without saying, but I think it's nice they include that. So there's no getting around that and you are aware of it. So, all right. That's Hugging Face. And then here I wanted to talk about the HIPAA identifiers. And so under HIPAA, why are we talking about HIPAA? Because we're talking about privacy and anonymization. So let's say you're really cheap, you don't want to do, or lazy, you don't want to do the Microsoft Presidio, and you really want to have a stringent de-identifying, anonymizing code or procedure for your large language model. So let's say I download a local LLM through Hugging Face, and then I want to tell it, what do I tell it to sufficiently anonymize my data? I would start off by telling it to remove all 18 HIPAA identifiers in the documents that I give it. These are really good. In fact, they're good enough for HIPAA, so why wouldn't they be good enough for my client? That's kind of how I think about it. These might be overkill, so maybe web URL, something you kind of want to change, up to you. But yeah, so I think that's a great thing. You could, or just include that when you ask the AI to de-identify. And I think that's it. And so just to briefly recap, the most important thing, in my opinion, based off of the ABA opinion, as well as, current court rules on this, and this, the obligations we have as attorneys to our clients, my number one recommendation, if you're using AI as an attorney, is that you disclose to the client that you are using AI and that you get their documented consent, okay? Their written consent. They are aware of it. They're okay with it. And your billing should reflect that. But that is just the number one, cover your butt. And you should, explain to them the risks, but explain that the risks are probably no greater than, a filing cabinet being broken into in your office. It's depending on your approach to how you use the AI, whether it's local or cloud, it's going to differ. But number one, get that consent. Number two, you should take steps on top of that. And so here, take one of the three steps. Either you are paying for a premium service that is offering privacy, you're paying for them not to use your data in training. Okay. That's option number one, pay for the privacy. Number two, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, the second one is run the local LLM. Okay. So, go to cloud, go to Hugging Face, the local LLM. Now you don't have to pay for that and you can anonymize through there. And then the last thing I would consider is doing just the anonymizer before uploading. So yeah, that's essentially it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. Please comment below if there are any other questions you have or videos you want me to make. I think the next one is going to be on Wickard, but I'm not entirely sure. And yeah, I hope you found this helpful. I hope you find that balance of innovation and integrity. And remember, I'm not an attorney yet. I'm a law student, so none of this is lawyer advice, and that's very convenient. I slipped that in at the end. All right, have a great one. Bye.